Welcome to Digitized Spotlight. On this series, Winnie and I explore some of the latest trends emerging in consumer crypto and chat with those building at the forefront. In this episode, we bring on a few of our investor friends to chat about all the interesting things that have been happening on chain. We've got Mason from Variant and Brian from Spermion. Before we dive in, a quick disclaimer. The views shared are our own. All such views are for informational purposes only and do not constitute and should not be construed or relied upon as legal, business, investment, or tax advice. So to start things off, I know we each brainstormed a couple of topics here. Would love to kind of open it up to maybe the first topic that we had chatted about. Meme coins. There's been a lot of momentum there. I don't know, Winnie, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a lot of dialogue around meme coins the last 2 weeks, mostly from what we're seeing as like both bonsai and the lens community and degen and the barcaster community being used to kind of bootstrap liquidity as well as like user engagement in early stage projects. So I think on the lens community, I've been using Orb quite a bit, and you're seeing bonsai being used as the type of currency. It's almost like called the culture currency to be able to kind of own and sell collectible content. So everything you post, you can kind of, post it as a collectible. And as a result, people can kind of mint it for free the same way you would do like on Zora or like on base type projects where then creators can kind of earn a fee for that. And then with Degen, I think we're seeing a few other projects from Dracula, which is like an on-chain TikTok bracket game, which is like a March Madness betting type game, as well as a few more. Pearl obviously has been around for a while. What's cool is they launched like native on-off ramp with Degen. So I think it's quite interesting. It kind of gives some sort of a utility to these meme coins, as well as these meme coins then become an interesting go-to-market and a way to kind of bet on an ecosystem of projects. But what do you guys all think? How do you guys think it's something that's like, beyond just meme coins that we've seen in the past, or what?
It feels like an iteration of what we've seen in the past. And so you're kind of right in that there's this like new approach of like these like community first meme coins that is interesting. The other approach that like we've historically seen is just like meme coins launched individually and then almost like become products afterwards. And so like Bonk is an interesting example there where like it started as a meme coin, but now you have like this robust like Telegram trading bot and like DEX infrastructure. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting that we're going from like pure memes to like meme coins as go-to-market wedges and products. That is not something I would have anticipated, but has been kind of fun to see.
I think it gets into like the super degen part of the market of where we are, where it's like, hey, all of a sudden, if you're able to like capture attention for something like, so crazy as a meme coin and then use that to actually spin out a business, like one, it's genius, but two, I kind of question like how long this type of stuff can last, where it's like, I think, if we look at it in a vacuum today and now, it's like super cool and interesting. It's new. Everyone's kind of using it. But then once that gets like super saturated, is that still like a long lasting go to market, or is it like a, hey, this is a, Q1, Q2, 2024 go to market plan, and then people need to adjust. So, I mean, I'll be talking about some, I think, even crazier stuff later in the show, but I find it, frankly, really cool, like as an industry and as like market participants, that there's, a new way to basically like launch a business that like none of us in school would have ever thought that this was something that would even come close to being like a real, like, hey, you should do this because it makes sense, right?
Yeah, I like the permissionless nature of like to kind of what you said, Brian. I think that's kind of what's cool about it. Is like anyone can kind of just use Degen right now if they were trying to launch a consumer crypto company, and that will kind of instantly give them a lot more distribution and users than they normally would have. Yeah. Whereas like in Web 2, if you were to do that, you would need like a more formal partnership, right? And I think that's kind of like the beauty that we're kind of see unfold.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think one challenge though that's added is, so like a meme coin, if it has no other utility, there's nothing expected of it. But as we've seen with a lot of the profile picture NFT projects, like they haven't been able to deliver up to consumer, demand, let's say, since last cycle. And then So they've really dropped off. And so will people expect like bonk for something else, or they expect degen to achieve something else rather than just be a meme? I think it can then be harder to like withstand, I guess, interest over time.
I do think it is very reminiscent of NFTs of last cycle, where the like NFTs have done a lot to catalyze new chains. So whether it was like initial NFT activity on like Solana last cycle, it was something that really like bootstrapped Solana, as opposed to like DeFi activity on it, which was present but like not necessarily where all the retail users were focused. And Memecoin seems very similar to like replacing that, where you have meme coins that are emerging on chains like Base that are bootstrapping this like initial flywheel of user activity, and it, like maybe some of the meme coins are able to like pivot into products or become like part of like these like community currencies. But I think what's more positive is just for the ecosystems overall that get the activity, because that can catalyze developers to want to build their, whether that's build exchanges and DeFi products or other types of consumer products altogether.
Yeah, I think just like in the last week alone, I think was it Dracula had $250,000 worth of degen paid out to creators. That's a pretty insane, insane statistic. I like start posting a ton on Dracula just to like learn more, but my algorithm is kind of messed up. I just can't get it quite right.
Gotta fix that.
I know, as an avid TikToker, like I actually love TikTok. As an avid TikToker, I'm really trying to get into it.
Yeah. So
what's go for it.
I was just gonna say one other thing, and I think this is, I think you guys are all kind of see parallels in this, but like, what I kind of see in, the meme coin where you say, hey, Bonk now does something, and all of a sudden like it gets grounded to reality. Same thing with NFTs last cycle. It's like a lot of the best trades that you could have made were when things were in the unknown and people were just purely speculating, and it was like that crazy cycle of speculation. And then the minute something actually came out where it's like, oh, this is what the game's going to maybe look like, or these and then people just like, oh shit, and then it just completely crashes.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with memes, because people are just like, oh cool, it could be anything, right? But then the minute, it's like that Peter Griffin scene where he's like, oh, what's in the box? It could be a boat, it could be anything. It's kind of like that, where it's like, once you actually give something people to like point to, and there's something where they can say, oh, wait a minute, like let's evaluate this properly, it's no longer in like that mystical realm, and things tend to kind of go down from there. So I think the same thing in a lot of ways is likely to play out here. There'll probably be a few exceptions, and I'll be listening to this recording and being like, damn, I was wrong. But I see a lot of the same parallels.
Yeah, I think Jared from TCG had a good take on this in his piece, where he kind of compared meme coins and degen to like kind of the financialized version of hashtags in Web3 social. And I like that take, right? Like the same way hashtags can kind of go trend and go viral on Twitter or on Instagram or TikTok, like meme coins is like a new meta for like betting on that virality. And it's kind of like exists across different applications, right? I don't know. I thought that was an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. I always love Chow from Alliance Stats framing of just like all tokens are mind share, all tokens are attention.
Yeah.
And like meme coins are the purest form of that, where like literally all there is attention. Like there's no fundamentals behind it, and no one's into like expecting fundamentals to be behind it. So it's like a pure form of like monetizing attention, and because it's ownable, because it has a token, like you can bridge that to other applications, which is interesting that like attention can now be like transferred from like a Twitter hashtag to something else, as opposed to like remaining independent to that platform.
Cool. Do we want to move on to the next topic we had aligned? So I think our conversation has kind of gone into, Mason, one of the things you want to talk about, which is prediction markets. So like in addition to meme coins being a place where we're seeing a lot of betting on trends, there's, apps themselves. So take it away.
Yeah, definitely. So let's set the stage a little. So prediction markets have been a topic that has been around for forever. Like every cycle, someone tries a new prediction market. And so the question is like, why this time? And I think there's a few reasons. One is that the infrastructure is much better. So finally we have L2s that have cheap gas fees. And so that means you can actually like place like really small bets, which is what maybe a lot of consumers or users would want to do. The other is you finally have like actual robust account abstraction. And so that means you can do social sign on and actually connect these like accounts of like Twitter or these existing social graphs with your wallets. And then I think the last thing is just like time. Like Polymarket has done a really good job at pushing the consumer behavior prediction markets forward, in particular for elections. And so I think that's been really, really cool. In prediction markets within crypto specifically, I think I've seen like 3 trends. And so like just to highlight what the trends are really quick, I'd say like one is this new focus on these social prediction markets. So like when you talked about like Pearl, there's other things like Trend Set Market, Fantasy, that are taking these different approaches to how do you create like Twitter's social, how do you leverage Twitter's social graph as an interesting environment. So like Taki always talks about like the great online game of social media. Like now you actually have a way to potentially like bet on the great online game in the same way that you would bet on like the Eagles game or something like that. The second trend I think that we've probably all seen is this use of Farcaster for like embedded prediction markets. And in particular, like Sway, Pearl, Limitless, Arena, all of them leveraging Farcaster for distribution. And I think a lot of these also fall into the camp of social prediction markets too, but have started to see some of them move towards like the long tail of user generated markets, which has historically been really challenging, but kind of makes sense in a more social or like lower stakes type of prediction market. And then the last trend I would say that we've broadly seen is the movement from binary prediction markets to continuous prediction markets. And so if you think of Polymarket today, like it's done tens, it's probably done actually like hundreds of millions of volume over, like its lifetime, but tens of millions over the past few months. Most of that is in elections, which is just a binary yes/no outcome. The obvious thing that we all know is that crypto users want more than a binary outcome. If you have like a 50-50 bet and you win it, like you double your money, that's cool. But like that's not what people want to do. And so I think we started to see different ways to create more continuous markets. Like meme coins are like a perfect instantiation of that. But I think we've also seen it from perps or different ways that you can create new types of sports prediction markets using crypto like financial mechanisms.
Yeah, so I was just going to actually expand on that. I'm curious to ask you this question. So, like, how much volume do you think like Joe Biden and Donald Trump trade during the elections? And like, as as a Canadian, like to me, the U.S. elections in general are like, it's crazy. Just it's a nice show to watch, honestly.
I'm Canadian as well.
But like with these new tools, it's like that is the expression, right? Like that's kind of where we're getting to, where it's like, yeah, I'd be curious how you, if you have like a call to make, be like, hey, this is where we think we'll be.
So I think election markets are really interesting where you get the majority of volume in the last few weeks. Like it's very, very little betting. And then it finally becomes like real in the zeitgeist. Everyone's like, okay, I want to bet on this. And so I forget the exact numbers. I looked this up a long time ago, but the election market of last cycle did like well over, I think, like 500 million in total volume. I think Polymarket has probably done maybe 150 million already in election volume. So if that hits $1 billion, I would not be shocked. And then like, what does that mean for Joe Biden?
Yeah,
I honestly have no idea. It
like
is either one of those things that like fades away by then, or it's peak.
And what's
meme.
cool about Polymarket, actually, Mason, I was thinking, is like you can kind of, it's like because you're buying shares of it on Polymarket, it's not actually as closely tied to like the last few weeks of the election, just because I know a lot of people kind of buy shares of certain people. And if there's like events, like debates or certain events, though that share within like, leading, not even close to the actual election date will still trade at like a certain price. So people are actually making these like intra bets before that, which is a new behavior I like. Because I know like a friend who actually bought like a couple of shares in like RFK, and he's like, I know for a fact that he's not going to win, but I think that could still pay off in like 2 months after certain events or something like that.
Yeah, and so like you could think of a really interesting way where today in like a lot of prediction markets, like basically like whoever wins the entire pot.
Yeah.
But there's different types of markets where, say you do bet on like RFK to, I don't know, like maybe you believe he's going to get higher in the polls, he's still not going to win. Maybe all of that liquidity like converts and like purchases a different meme coin like in that basket.
Yeah.
Like there's different ways where you could create those similar types of user behavior that you're talking about while making the game a little more dynamic and less binary.
So what do you guys think happens after the election? So do these characters like live on? Does the token fall off? Like, I guess that's one question I've had. Like, obviously, they're not connected necessarily to the election, but there's just more attention on Trump given it. But I guess if he's in office, then that could draw like interest.
I mean that's kind of one of the benefits of a meme tied to like a generic idea rather than a person, is that the generic idea can live on forever. Doge being like the quintessential example of like Doge never dies. Versus, I don't know, something like Joe Biden, like if he's not in office, you know, it's like 2 years later, like he's not running again, or 3 years later, he's not running again. I would see that having a lot less mimetic value.
They say the most entertaining outcome is the most likely. So from my perspective, if Donald Trump wins, Donald Trump becomes a secondary currency in America, and he just claims it as his own, and he's like, yeah, we can use this now. So I think it stays. That's I'm going long.
It plays. Well,
One question I have for prediction markets is like, I feel like we've been seeing a lot of like social, like you said, Mason, a lot of like prediction markets based on like social media, whether it be like Kizzy on Solana, Pearl within Farcaster, Fantasy Top on Blast, right? Trends on Market on like trends on Twitter. Do you think there's actually an interest from people on betting on social media?
I think so. I think it's just a question of what is the right form factor. And so if you think of like sports betting as like the example, kind of started as I'm going to just bet on which team wins.
Yeah.
You have people who are very like tribalistic about sports. And so like that definitely helps. I think you do have people who are similarly tribalistic about like influencers online. But where sports betting, I think, got really fun is when you start to add things like parlays, where like I'm not just going to pick this one thing happening. Like all four of these things are going to hit, and I can turn $10,000 into 1,000. And to me, that's like a more interesting dynamic that a social prediction market could be like. Are you going to bet like multiple things happen? And as social media grows, like Mr. Beast in his average video gets more views than any NFL game. And so I just think that where there's distribution, there's probably a willingness to speculate on the outcome of that distribution. I would be curious, like, do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if it's tied to like cultural moments, right? Like large cultural moments, that could be super interesting. But I guess today, a lot of it is like social media influencers within our very crypto native circle, which is we have to like sometimes zoom out and be like, this is a very small circle and it's less interesting. But when you take like the macro view of like Mr. Beast or like celebrities and kind of like having that tied to some cultural elements, that could be super interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be most effective when it's like tiered. Like you're going to have the top people, and then like in terms of like if I were to like Fantasy Top is a good example. Like if that game was like a broader set of people, I would probably have no desire to play, because all people that I like see on Twitter every day, I'm like, oh, okay, like I can kind of like place like
who's on your Fantasy Top, who's on deck for you,
who's on deck. Well, I'm competing in a few markets right now.
Oh wow! Are you winning?
I'm not winning. But I'm competing, so I'm in it.
Who's your most star player or like card that you own?
Let me check, because it changes. It changes per.
It changes. Section. I thought you'd get like I haven't been on in a while.
Well, because it's based on each tournament is like a set time frame, so like 2 days, and so depending on how much someone tweets in a given day,
don't you have certain cards?
Like the outcome. Yeah, but like who performs best kind of based on like how much they tweet.
Sounds like you have a fat deck.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Foray model.
Yeah, I'm checking my cards as well. I will say though, I mean, even within like crypto native influencers, I feel like my deck, I just go off of prior ratings and floor prices and like random picks. Like I think like you're saying, Winnie, it's quite hard, even I don't know, to keep up with all these different characters and have an informed view, like unless you're extremely deep. So yeah, I guess that is a challenge for these more like social influencer plays when, you know, a team and a set of athletes people might be very closely tracking, but you know, who's the latest trending person on Twitter is maybe harder.
Yeah. Luca from Pudgy is one of my top cards.
It's similar. I mean, like there's some of these platforms that are out there now where you can, invest in like early tennis players, early athletes, early, college sports folks, and like, get a clip of their, projected future career earnings. And it's like it's similar in that same sense where it's, a prediction market to a certain degree of something that's a bit more real than, fully, like a social media account, but it's the same kind of idea. I think the social stuff lends itself quicker to like, quicker in and out trading markets, and you're able to create many more variations of games on top of that versus just the binary outcome of like, okay, is this person going to do well? Yes, cool. It took 10 years, right?
Yeah.
I don't think any of us have the patience to wait 10 years, right?
But the cool thing about this betting on sports,
it's cool to see like this is competitive.
What's cool about betting on sports?
The cool thing about betting on sports, player to what you said, Brian, is like the players actually get the money. Like on Fantium, right? Like you're actually able to like help bootstrap like 200-300K for these like early players, tennis players who actually don't have sponsorship or funding. Or if you're looking at European like football leagues, right? A lot, unless you're like a top team, you're not able to get that much revenue or sponsorship revenue. So like, and the way like soccer and like football works in Europe is like you can kind of get bumped up, right? So I think it actually has a financial impact and performance impact on those teams, which is cool. Whereas in social media, like,
it's a different
founders not getting
well, so that's where I think one thing that's been missing is tying the social element to the actual creators. And so if you look at something like Fantasy.top, they actually give a percentage of that person's trading card fees to the creator. And granted, it's all just like fake testnet money. But to me, that is like how you start to get that cycle of the creator recognizing the social asset because like they benefit from it, as opposed to a prediction market that's just like, taking from the creator without giving anything to them.
I dig it. It's interesting. We'll see. We'll see how it all evolves, man. It's the net new casino. I mean, it's just variations of the casinofication of like different things, right? Which is fun.
Financial nihilist, Brian,
or realist, but having fun along the way, right? Like,
it's not about the memes that we bought, but the fun that we had along the way.
Exactly.
Okay, so to move to our next topic, a lot of connectivity to some of these prior ones is, we've been seeing a lot more normies back. They're driving the meme coin trades. They're on these apps. I actually found a stat from the block that spot crypto exchange trading volume is over 2 trillion so far in March, and it was about 300 billion in September. So like pretty rapid, I don't know, almost 8x, I don't know, something like that. And we've also seen announcements and developments around wallet infrastructure. So like Privy and Dynamic, making it easier to spin up a wallet with email and social logon. Coinbase is now launching a smart wallet that is going to make it easier for Coinbase users to take their balance over into dApps. So I thought it's just good to like sense check, like, where are you with your normie friends and what are they doing in crypto right now?
Take us away, Brian.
Yeah. So my normie, I've gotten a few folks on Grass because I was like, hey, here's like a super low, easy way to like start understanding, some of the different things. In Canada in particular, like a lot of my friends, they've been getting exposure, frankly, through like the BTC and ETH ETFs that we've had for a very long time. So they're like more, I would say they're more in on the like, hey, I'm logging into my Questrade or my Wealthsimple account and I'm buying, these structure, these products in like my RRSP and TFSA because I've just been doing that since, 3 years. Right. a few of them are like into kind of the whole Solana kind of, quickness. And they actually, one of the more interesting conversations I had with a buddy, like he had tried ETH and he was like, okay, it's kind of cool, slow and clunky. And then he's like, yeah, on Solana, he's like, this is what I thought crypto would be. Where he's like, I clicked the button and then it happened. And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of like, an interesting take, where it's like you don't realize sometimes like what it is to like someone using things for the first time, where it's like, people want it to feel like the regular everyday internet, right? And that's like, okay, cool, you click a button and something happens and it's done, versus the, hey, we need to wait. So that was one of the first signs of like, oh, okay, you know I understand and appreciate why I think a lot of the new retail today is kind of going there, because it feels, frankly, it just feels like
It works. It's
we're used
fast.
to, yeah, it works and it's fast. Like it's
I was
hard
trying
to,
to do
it's
something.
hard to argue against that, right? So
Yeah. I was
um,
trying to do something on mainnet, and it was like $70 to, you know, for gas, and I'm like,
yeah, exactly. Like so no one's paying for gas. They're not about to do that, right? So um,
And I
yeah,
think it'll get even better once like paymasters are like more normalized and you start to see transaction sponsoring from apps. Because then we move from like this still like kind of pay to play era to this like free to play era of blockchains, where you don't have to just be like an app that monetizes via transactions. You can be like a traditional app that monetizes via distribution.
yeah. I guess to answer your question, Amanda, one thing that I did find super interesting is the song. I don't know if you guys heard of it, Austin on Sound. I'm gonna put it in the Unlonely chat right now. It's by this artist called Dasha, and I actually had bought and minted this song on Sound and collected it, and then maybe like later I saw it go viral, completely viral on TikTok, and it's kind of one of the top trending sounds right now on Spotify and TikTok, which is so cool to see because she's on Sound. And I know for so long, for like every cycle we talk about like, oh, imagine if you bought like a share or like a token of Taylor Swift, right? But like we can't go back in time, and like that doesn't make sense. But like we finally see this thesis like play out because I collected the song, you showed out early, and then I paid on if I refer people on Sound and people collect it, I get that referral rewards. So it's super cool to see something like kind of break that crypto native sphere and kind of reach mainstream hype. Yeah, I wonder if like how that will kind of impact how her mints are going right now on Sound, but that's super cool to see.
Yeah, it's interesting like when crypto really starts to enter like the culture, because like obviously it does that from like a speculative standpoint, but not always from like the actual non-speculative culture like music.
Yeah, and like imagine if you then are more incentivized to like have it go viral on like a TikTok or a Dracula on chain TikTok, and have that be part of, because you were early and own a part of it. That is pretty cool. I think we're beginning to see some of that early parts of that working, which gets me excited because we've been talking about it for so freaking long.
Yeah, I think last cycle my friends were most interested in the things that they could like do, and one of those was actually just like deep in, so like buying a helium hotspot or those types of like physical, like they could like kind of have like, even though like you just put the hotspot, plug it in, it does nothing after that. Like I think that still resonated with a lot of my friends, and I think we've started to see like that cycle again 2.0. The last thing that last cycle really brought to was like step, and I remember a bunch of my friends were like telling me, oh, like I'm on this like cool walking app, and I was like, wow, like I was not anticipating this, and so I'll be curious to see what that version is this time around. Maybe it's walking again.
Yeah. Do you guys remember those days you like walked 2 blocks and you made like 2 SOL? It was insane. I never forget.
the only time in my life where I was consistently hitting 10K steps,
You didn't even need to hit 10K. It was like 500 steps and you made like $500. It was insane.
Yeah. So do you feel that they're mostly like they're able to kind of move into apps themselves and like more than last cycle. Because I would say, like, I don't know, maybe mine are still basic and they only want to buy something on Coinbase and they're asking me what to buy. Maybe you can get them farming something simple.
Amanda wrote a farming playbook for her brother. It's like 100 pages long, guys.
No,
It's not. But anyways,
that's,
I don't know. Yeah, like it's not like my friends are like, okay, like I want to try some app. Like, can you onboard me to Solana or Base or something? Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that just my circle or I
yeah,
mean,
I would say,
like far out for for someone I know.
yeah, I'm not in that dissimilar of a boat. I mean, I sent that around to it, to a bunch of people, and I got a few people being like, well, okay, no, like, haha, crypto, so actually, like, I think that's, in terms of like where we're at in the point of this cycle, I think that's actually kind of a good sign, even with all of the things that are going on. Like, there's, it's not like every single one of my friends are like, hey, what do I do or what do I buy, right? Or like, how do I do it? Um, so that's like, hopefully promising, let's just say.
Someone in the chat said they can't even get their friends to sign up for Blackbird, which I think is super interesting because that's the one thing that a lot of my friends like instantly get. Especially, I sent it to a few of my friends who live near the coffee shops, the breakfast pass, and that's like a no-brainer. $60, get merch, get coffee, get granola. But like a lot of my friends have been doing the Blackbird thing.
Blackbird also does have a beautiful like sign-in flow.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you, Amanda, that like not every sign-in flow is there yet, but
Yeah.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be the lack of desire to try specific apps. Like there's got to be something you want to try. Blackbird is another one, though. I have kind of onboarded my family. Not that they do it on their own, but like I bring them to a restaurant and show them how it works. I'm like, this is what this industry is. Yeah.
It's like, mom, dad, we're trying to do cool stuff. I promise. We're trying. Just download this app, please. Please.
I actually have 3 friends, like crypto adjacent friends that have joined Blackbird, the company, not like, which I think is a super bullish sign. Like they're not like in any like management roles, but they're like, they joined the company because they're like, have you heard this like restaurant app? And they call it more of like restaurant versus crypto,
Yeah.
which I think is interesting. They're on ops teams like biz ops.
I mean, that's good. Like, I mean, that means they're doing, Web 2.5 in the front, Web 3 in the back, right? That's like,
Yeah.
it's the whole vibe. So I think that's the way, most apps have to do it, frankly, at this point.
So I'd be actually curious to hear, Brian. So you think most apps should focus more on like the obfuscating the elements of crypto?
It depends. I think it really depends on what you're doing. But we have a couple in our portfolio that are, starting to kind of show a little bit of kind of blockchain elements to their apps, but they, a lot of them have started with the Web 2.5 approach. I think depending on the theme or what you are trying to do and accomplish, yeah, I would probably push it for, like, I think it's applicable for 70% plus. And then, you're going to have your super degen native on-chain stuff where, yeah, that's never going to work. But like, for the average person, right, like, I think you got to look to kind of grow the market that you can serve. And while crypto is a really good wedge and like, hey, this is like a good niche, the stuff that's being built that like I'm excited about isn't necessarily targeting the crypto audiences. It's more, hey, here's these unique features that you can, do and use because of this, right? And it's embedded in one way or another, rather than being like, hey, you need to learn all this stuff just to be able to use this kind of app. So, maybe it's wrong. I like, I've had people give me a lot of flack for that, where they're like, no, dude, like that's not the ethos, this and that. I'm like, well, sure, that's not the ethos, but then like your market is literally like, 10,000 people who are maybe going to care about like some app that, might not work. Or you can go after most of the universe in this way and then onboard them, kind of Trojan horse style. So,
Yeah, Brian, how is Mod House in your portfolio? Like, did you guys go to their concert recently?
I mean, they're like, that is,
Cool.
that to me is a
That's
shining
a perfect
example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I can get into that, but basically, so Mod House is a Korean K-pop infrastructure platform where they've launched, multiple artists. Their kind of most famous at the moment is Triple S. They just won, top new female artist out of
No
Korea
way.
from the
Wow.
Mana Awards. Yeah. So they've been doing incredible. But what the platform allows them to do is basically create these fan engagement moments where, based on your physical collectibles that have a digital twin in your app, you get a voting token where at each of these events, they're called gravity events, you're able to basically influence the direction of the band in one way or another. So let's say the girl group is 24 girls, who's going to be the next 8 core mini group, who's going to be on the cover, what should be the title song. And every time we have these events, they're like, basically like a new revenue line for this company. And the coolest part is like, if you downloaded this app, you'd have no idea that most of the stuff is, on Polygon or on chain. But the reason, I think that's for good reason. And then if you wanted to check that your vote counted, you could. And the reason why that's important is in 2019, there's a huge
wasn't that scandal?
Yeah, there was great, like basically
show?
kind of like American Idol in Japan, where but for K-pop, pretty similar idea. These two producers went to jail because they defrauded the audience, where the audience was trying to vote on like, hey, it should be these people. They ended up going to jail, and it was like a huge, like crazy articles about these people, and it was like a whole, whole media ordeal. But basically, this is a solution to that, where it says, hey, look, like everything that you do is accountable, and here you can prove what you've done if you choose, and if you want to check Polyscan, but you don't have to. So it's elements like that where I'm like, okay, this to me is like the promise of what we've been trying to do for a while, where it's like intertwined and it has all the right kind of flavors to like get you the ultimate product. So we're really excited about them. I mean, they just continue to impress, frankly. I think they'll be coming to the States soon if you guys want to go to a concert.
Yes, I want to go. But what I like about Mod House and kind of Triple S, what they're doing is it plays into a lot of the existing behaviors that's already prevalent in Korea, right? So like when you purchase these like NFTs, they're photo cards. They're almost like trading cards, like kind of like what you do in fantasy, like in sports, right? But like that photo card is like something that behavior already exists in K-pop today. People already buy physical albums just to collect these cards. So it's like something that they already kind of do, but now they're doing digitally. And you can actually go to like their physical, it's not 7-Eleven, but their equivalent of convenience.
Yeah, it's like gas stations, convenience stores.
You can buy these
things. You can go buy them anywhere. And
then they're actually NFTs. You can like scan it, which I think is super cool. I made like some of my friends in Korea buy it and like scan it for me when I was like downloading it, and just to vote for a few people.
Yeah, so it's cool. I mean, so that I think, maybe I'm biased. I mean, I'm biased, not maybe. I'm biased. But like that to me is a really good example. And like, hey, here's something that you can talk to like a bajillion people about, and all of a sudden you have this whole new audience who's like, hey, what the heck is Polyscan? Why is this interesting, right?
Yeah, wait, I'm gonna post. I mean, their songs kind of slap. Like they're most of their songs.
Yeah, they have like 2 million YouTube subs.
I'm gonna post it in the chat.
They're
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to stand, we can get down.
45 million views. Acid Angel from Triple S.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, I think one of the interesting things I've been seeing is that, in terms of reaching mass audiences, is using apps that aren't entirely focused on crypto, already have distribution, and then integrating crypto in a way that's interesting and being able to kind of monetize and reach a larger audience than you would on a typical crypto app. And so for me, what stands out here is Telegram, which has 800 million users. And I think we've seen a couple of ways that Telegram is integrating with crypto. So one would be bots, either within like the Telegram app store, within kind of other kind of applications that are leveraging Telegram. Like I think Sofamon just released their beta today. There's trading bots. So being able to quickly make trades where you're seeing alpha in chat groups. And then Telegram also is now doing their ads with Ton. So I think we're seeing a lot of different ways that this app, which is sort of the main communication channel for crypto users, but is beyond that, and is incorporating crypto in interesting ways. I know we were chatting a bit about Sofamon. I don't know if people have thoughts there, the trading bots, which have been gaining massive momentum, but I'll open it up.
Yeah, I mean, Sofamon just launched today, and for context, for those who aren't as familiar, so it's basically a application that you connect your Telegram account. It gives you like this character, and then you can buy clothes for your character, and then it also puts that avatar on Telegram stickers that you can send. And to me, I think that I've always been excited about this type of idea ever since 6551 came out, where you could create like effectively like an avatar character that has like different ownable assets. And the reason that I think that's really exciting is because at the end of the day, like crypto is such a status oriented activity that NFTs fit really well into there. And if you can bring that status into another application that people already, care about, like Telegram, then I think there's a lot of potential. So really, really cool to see applications like Sofamon, just bring this like status element to Telegram, but also like use crypto rails to do it.
Yeah. Why didn't you buy the glasses then?
That I didn't want to spend 3 ETH on sunglasses.
Yeah, we need to figure out how the pricing is. It on? We haven't figured out if it's on bonding curve or not. But by the time I got around to it, it was like
my immediate guess is yes, it's on a bonding curve. And then I also think that it's leveraging some combination standard of like 404, where there's like an NFT and also some type of fungible on the back end, because you can buy fractions of the clothing, which is also just like a really cool experiment too.
Yeah, but then you can't, like, I think it was like if you buy a fractional item, you can't just show it on your Telegram. So it's like, then maybe it's for trading purposes.
Yeah, it's the best of both. It's
Right.
like it can both be like status and an asset.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see whether they go more of a scarcity model or a kind of just like proliferation of stickers and images model, maybe crowdsourced. But yeah, right now the bonding curve is extensive.
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't get to spend too much time on Twitter today. So I was, doing bad VC job.
or good job.
Yeah, I'm good. And gonna need to go check that out. But yeah, it's all the buzz. There's some chatter internally on some of our Slack channels here that I got to go dig into. But I think overall, like, kind of the Telegram. I think Telegram. There's probably like, in terms of like next narrative, I think base is all the rage today and now. I think Telegram, probably picks up at some point in terms of narrative. Like, I think it's been slept on for quite some time, and now people are starting to see like, oh, this might be the, opening the floodgates of like, hey, Telegram has like the most users out of any app that we all interact with. Like, here's all the different things you could do. Here's everything that's embedded in it. Here's the wallet, right? So I kind of see that as, potentially the next, narrative. If, we'll see, but that's kind of like my dark horse call.
I think it's a good dark horse call. It becomes more plausible like as you get more people to have wallets connected to their Telegram accounts.
Yeah.
Because if you think of something like Farcast or Lens or like any of these like social networks, like the powerful part is that you have a wallet built in. Whereas like Telegram today, like I think you can have a wallet built in, but like I think the way maybe like most of us use it is we're using like a wallet that's created inside an application like a Telegram bot. And so like you have a bunch of wallets inside Telegram rather than this like universal one that you can access. At least that's how I feel today. But like broadly, I think your point is accurate. And just like as we get more wallets in Telegram, you open up the design space for apps that can be built.
Yeah. I think it becomes something like, oh, everyone's like, oh, cool, base. Like, here's all this great, UX, UI. Here's all these users. Here's what it did. And then people are like, well, wait a minute. Like, can we just do that here also? And like, this is more, it's like technically there's more people on Telegram than there's on Coinbase, right? So it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, okay. So we'll see if that plays out. I don't know. We'll, timestamp this and catch me in 6 months and,
Yeah, I think one of the things is in China, like WeChat has always been uniquely tied. Like you have your financial identity uniquely tied to your social identity because WeChat Pay is tied to kind of where you socialize on WeChat, but that's never really existed in like the West because kind of because of just like your financial data has always been separate, right? Like you have your Stripe, you have your bank accounts, you have Apple Pay, your payment rails have never been tied. But with crypto, it's like actually uniquely tied, whether that be on Farcaster, which is why I think in-frame transactions is so cool because for the first time, like you said, Mason, like your social identity, what you do on Facebook or what you do on Twitter can actually be tied to kind of what you do on your financial rails. And I think that's quite powerful. So I think Farcaster is a great go-to-market for kind of that. Telegram as well, because you see it, and Lens too, once they kind of turn some of those features on.
Yeah, totally agree. Do we think Telegram builds its own like first party trading bot once they realize how much money they're losing?
I mean, it's a good idea. Like, if I'm them, yeah. But like, maybe that's probably not what they care about, honestly.
How do they monetize today? Like, is it just kind of these like premium subscriptions, or do they monetize at all through any of the bots?
Mine, yeah, I think it's just the subs.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think they take a take rate on
Yeah.
bots.
What if they pull Apple?
They honestly probably
They
could.
should. I would just do that if I were them. Like pull an Apple and charge the bots.
I mean, I would rather they don't, but
I know I wouldn't. They do. That's an easier way than building their own. I guess they could just build their own bot for like I don't know, but
Yeah, I mean they have ad revenue now, at least, with that new movement.
what's that? Explain to me. I actually am not following.
So they are now like, so I guess if they split revenue for advertising 50-50 with channel owners, and then they're using Toncoin as the means to power that. But yeah, I haven't done a deep dive into like maybe there's something else, you're right, other than premiums and subscribers that is creating revenue. But yeah, clearly they're looking for more monetization opportunities given they just launched this. So you might see more.
that's an interesting model. I mean, I've always thought that crypto apps in general don't use advertising enough, and it just seems like it's a valuable like business model that you could leverage to do things like subsidized user transactions or a variety of other things.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because there's not enough users on a lot of crypto projects to like for advertising to be that interesting. But
that's probably true. That's probably
yeah.
true.
But yeah, I mean, there is like a whole set of growth startups that are focused on that market. I've also seen some pop up on like focused on Farcaster ads. Yeah,
I feel like some frames are just ads.
Yeah, frames are ads. Yeah.
Cool. Do we want to do like one more topic or turn it over to Q&A?
Brian, did you want to talk about the pre-market sales, meme rotations, or no?
I mean, yeah, it's more of just like I guess like the slurf stuff was just more of something that like I think is a sign of the times to a certain degree. So I can kind of gloss over it pretty quickly, but like, I think this was last week. Meme token, classic Solana meme token called Slurf. So the guy who runs it, his name is Slorf. Slorf posted a meme coin called Slurf and raised a bunch of money and accidentally burned $10 million of, the initial kind of pre-sale capital that he was able to bring in. And all he wrote down was like, oh, fuck. And then he's like, I'm really, really sorry. And then all of a sudden, like, volumes completely shut up. I think he did over like $2 billion of trading volume. And it's just like, to me, like, this is like even sketchier than the like ICO times, 2017 ICO times, where it's like these people are thrown together like a website and like trying to, do a white paper, And this is literally just like, bullshit, like, bullshit anon account on Twitter saying, hey, I'm going to go do something. And then like, there's some people who, if you like bought in, you made money. And it's just like a very wild expression of like just the, I think, market and like what people are going after today. It's like, wow, I really, really, really want to like straight up gamble. And so again, going back to the like everything is the casino, and like that's where I think the attention is today. I think this is just like a really good example of that. And then what's even more interesting is then some people were like, hey, actually, this wasn't, done by mistake. This was done on purpose. This is just, the way he wanted to market the token. And I was like, okay, well, that's actually kind of interesting. So it's like you make the mistake, you make the memeable moment like, okay, cool, this is what's completely trending on Twitter, encapsulates everything. Going back to what I think we've all said before, where it's like, hey, we're capturing this crazy, crazy attention, and then what can you do with it, right? So, kudos to him if it was, a mistake, and this is, what he did. I'm sure, the developer, kind of ended up doing well, but like to me, the 3 lines of like, hey, send Soul here, and then you get airdropped a bunch of like, meme tokens is like a little ridiculous. Like, I think we could all do better than that. In terms of like what we're all trying to get to, and like it's incredibly distracting because then it's like, you get calls. My friend's like, yo, who is Slorf? And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like that has nothing to do with what we do on the day to day, but like it kind of does now, right?
Yeah,
So,
the other thing I will say is like I also think the consumer psychology of this is it's a function of like the overall macro market, right? I think I saw a chart today from Charlie Valelio. He has a really good newsletter you guys should follow. But it's like we are in the most unaffordable housing market ever. Monthly mortgage payments in the median in the U.S. has increased 80% in the last 4 years, which is like no millennials or Gen Z can afford to buy a home. So as a result, they do all that capital that they would have, put into like a down payment, they're now using to gamble into these meme coins that could potentially actually create some real wealth because they're not doing it investing in real estate. So I think a lot of it is that like rotation is like people are seeking, they're not able to make good money through traditional assets that previous generations have. So they are more seeking riskier assets.
yeah, for sure. I think that's totally right. So we'll see, and I think it's only going to continue to get crazier. And I think every couple of weeks, there's going to be some new thing that like garners attention where it's like, cool, this guy on Twitter, turned his $500 into 3 million. Great. And like, that's just going to continue. Right. So
This guy,
that was the piece on Slurf or Slurf.
Mason, you were going to say.
Cool. I just said the Sky Casino is open and doing well.
Yeah.
People, yeah, I agree. People feel disenfranchised and they want to feel like they have some type of agency. And for some reason, meme coins, people think that they can actually like predict culture, maybe because like no one can. And so everyone thinks they can. And it's an interesting like financial psychological behavior that we're seeing. That I'll be curious to see like where that is in 12 months for sure.
Cool. Any questions from the audience? Final topics people want to chat about?
This was so fun, guys.
Cool.
Yeah, good times. Thanks for
vibing.
Thanks for having us. Cool, guys.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Cool.
Catch you later.
Okay.